Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sundance's National Poetry Month reading series. We're glad that you're here once again on another beautiful spring afternoon. Today, we have the privilege to hear from three wonderful poets, Melanie Parrish, Michelle Waite, and Kathryn de Lancellotti. Without further ado, here once again is our host, Sean Griffin.
Thank you, Emily, and welcome everyone out there in the ethersphere. This is our 22nd year of having poetry at Sundance. It's pretty wonderful that we can continue this process. And thank you to so many of you who tuned in last week to hear Jimmy Santiago Baca kick off the series. It was a remarkable reading, and it's on YouTube Live as this event is now, and will be there for the foreseeable future. We have that on good faith. Before I begin the readings and the introductions, I want to read one poem from Laura Wetherington, a dear friend to Northern Nevada who lives in the Netherlands. We had asked her to participate in this series, but she's on another time zone, as you know, so I'm going to read from her new book. This poem is entitled Pressing at the Base of the Sky, after Deborah Heisler. The power of mountains, pregnant movements, pressing at the base of the sky. The human hands hold 27 bones. Spring signals promise, a clear yes, resounding in green. You will live a long life, yes. Here, this broken line shows a child, and this one, another. When there are no predictions to capture the summer, we work with our hands. Grounding in absence, quite complicated. The contact between each digit, a little. Listening. What we lose will amount to silence. That's Laura Wetherington from her new book, Parallel Resting Places. So welcome, everybody. I'm thrilled to be seeing all of you out there and to have three dear friends and wonderful poets reading tonight. Melanie Parrish is going to start us off, followed by Michelle Waite, and Kathryn de Lancellotti will finish the reading tonight. And we'll go for about an hour. So you should be in for a great time. Without further ado, I want to introduce Melanie. Melanie Parrish is a dear friend of Northern Nevada poets and poetry. She's the author of 2 collections, and she has a poems that were featured on the Nevada Humanities website, Heart to Heart, in December. And she is grateful for the many people that help her in this world up here with her work, but I think the thanks goes otherwise. We're grateful for her presence. Let's give a warm welcome to Melanie Parrish.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean, especially for all of your hard work. I mean, the things that you do for poets and poetry in Nevada is terrific. Thank you, Emily, and everyone at Sundance for everything that you do for this community, which is Legion. The poems I'm going to read this afternoon are poems that were written in the last year, and they owe a debt to miles of people. Gilmarie Palmeyer and her poetry class, the Mary Nork and Joe Crawley writing group, Catherine Case, and the email writing exchange that she initiated. There are 2 new people who've been remarkable, and their groups have been remarkable. Bruce Isaacson of Poetry Promise and Heather Lang Casara, who is the poet laureate of Clark County. These people do workshops and also reading series, and it's been a gift to find them. Most recently, I took a writing workshop with Kim Stafford, a former poet laureate from Oregon, and it was wonderful. These people are strong advocates, and being a strong advocate for art in America is not easy, but they're also amazing writers. And as amazing as they are the participants that are there. The participants of all of these workshops have amazing voices, important voices, and they're also wonderful readers. They read closely, and that's really helped me an enormous amount. In this first poem, the poet speaks of her own death, and the title is On Death in the Land of COVID-19. I will die in the mountains on a hot day, on a day in May, July, or October, and one like today, with no vaccine, still air, trees as busy with photosynthesis as I am with death. This day will include words in lines less jagged than a granite ridge, less smooth than beach glass, but varied as shadow lines on bright ground. They will say, the poet chose not to start the clockworks of her heart near 5 Lakes. Everyone knew she'd forget to keep the mistress key in her back pocket. Hearts attack. Ventricular contractions don't always respond to voice commands. The witnesses are Black women, pilots, miners. They are brook trout, cairns, a mouse caught in the hawk's talons, or the magpies that eat death and fly. Nature has always been a part of my life, and the speaker in this poem speaks with nature and is grateful for it. Indigo place and yellow-eyed wild. Diffuse dust drifts unseen into us, from us. The sky mutes itself to indigo and stars where night birds dodge branches, skim through the taffeta dark, mark their wildness, ask us our place in it. The sky mutes itself to indigo and stars where yellow-eyed owls flaunt wings, beak, vision, mark their wildness, ask us our place in it. We are far from wild and yellow-eyed owls who flaunt wings, beak, vision. Stay alert, the birds command us, to the smallest twitch. We are far from wild, but we share stardust and begin to listen, to stay alert. The birds command us with the smallest twitch from wings, latticed and strong, to see glints and share stardust. We begin to listen, to feel wing wind near our shoulders, always wings latticed and strong. We see glints and night birds dodge branches, skim through the taffeta dark. We feel wing wind near our shoulders, always. Diffuse dust drifts unseen into us, from us. The speaker in this poem speaks as a member of this culture and also as a woman in this culture. It's called We, after Claudia Rankine. We have been the sellers, the sold, the girl's blue bruises under her shirt, have been the man in summer, the gun of his failure, have been the gun in his ribcage, shot and wounded, been wounded, have been the needle in the flesh, hands that pushed poison and rush, have been a river's rush and run, a river run with poison, spun its current, have been a woman defined by a body for birth, have borne a body made fine and redefined by women, have been inspired, spiraled down, buried, been buried, have been a story and unstoried, have been a dialect forgotten, mispronounced or mistaken, have taken, have given, have been forgiven, have been the will to change, opening like the iris of an eye. I often write in the voices of other people and other things. And this poem is called Tahoe Meadows, the story as told by the trail. I know the cadence of feet and the privilege of open spaces. I live on stolen land. In spring, I am sun-seeking. I mud the sole of boots. In meadows, I bask and wait for wild aster or iris, paintbrush or California poppy. Stone-studded, dusty in summer and fall, I ramble, I wander. Is it any wonder I am who I serve? I came into being long ago through the instinct of mule deer and the hunter's skill. Like an old woman, I retreat in winter, cherish the snow-loaded silence and feel weight above me like a lover, like the memory of lovers. In the forest, I'm in the company of trees. Their roots reach and sculpt me in ways that surprise us both, like time. Lucille Clifton has a fabulous poem called Note Passed to Superman. And this poem is called Note Passed to Mary Magdalene, after Lucille Clifton. You were always my favorite, Mary of Magdala, Mary Magdalene, sometimes simply Magdalene. I called you Magda and prayed to you too. Long overdue. This is a thank you for your body, for being present in it, validated by your 7 demons, cast out or not, for befriending Jesus, investing in him, and a cause that shifted toward love. Thank you for being the apostle to the apostles, whether any of that dozen noted it or not. Thank you for keeping watch over Mary, Blessed Mother, for walking and standing with her on the day of the crucifixion, for your deep listening after it was finished. I do not know if Jesus rose from the dead. I do not know if you too saw an angel on the 3rd day, but I have heard of women who came to a tomb's entrance, saw the floor-length wings, a luminous face and form. They nodded in his direction, asked that he step aside so they could enter, listened to one another. Several years ago, this collective voice called the Godmothers showed up, and for a while they were a little quiet, and I thought, they've gone, and they don't. They have an opinion. They still have an opinion on everything. So this is what the Godmothers said of their writing. We no longer ski downhill, edge to edge, hair streaming like first draft lines. We trek in spring's cold, spot the odd snow plant, pink as cotton candy, spun in the sky's kettle of gray clouds. Snowshoes strapped tight as a sonnet's rhyme, we move carefully through cedars and loblolly pine, avoid drifts like wasted words. It should be snowing, but it's not. We should be writing, and we will, but differently. To write, like any winter trek, cuts new trails, sometimes follows paths put down earlier in the day or season. Some of us rediscovered lyric lines, cadence stanzas, like the moonless night, snowshoed the farm field, saw stars fly white as barn owls. Here is a poem in the voice of another living thing. What the autumn peaches suggested to the old woman. A lot of things seem to want to talk to the old woman these days. What the autumn peaches suggested to the old woman. They call us autumn flame, and we see, you know the turning of autumn, that your skin like ours might be more thin suede than the velvet plush some think we should have. Times become another feature found outside, and ours thrums with blood pulse, while ours commands smooth fibers with what's sweet. Land of the round and nectared. The sun feeds us both, fuels the juice that's in us or has been juice that leaves chins dripping. This poem is called Alienation. That word shows up sometimes. Alienation, after Charles Simic. Alienation cannot fathom the solitude of the archipelago, but understands the island's isolation. Does it swim or tread water? Has it always been global and local, with houses in Jerusalem and Tulsa, Prague and Nagasaki? Will it consider moving to a house in the Meadowwood development where there are no meadows? Can it be present in the schoolyard bully and the kid that gets stuffed in the locker at lunch? Does it ponder the ignorance of skin privilege for the light-skinned and the vigilance around it for sepia-skinned people? Does it love its bed and refuse to get up, or does it sit munching chips in front of some screen? Is it armed with a torch and American flag, or a sharp tongue and a rainbow banner? Does it see us as the elephant of rage and rant, or the spider with its silk silence? Will it swallow us whole? After the Fire Watch reports, September 11, 2020. More smoke in the air, and I grieve for California. Everything else in my life shrinks to dust motes when towns and trees burn to ash. 19 years ago, smoke and ash in New York City in a field outside DC. But Baghdad, Beirut, Paris, Nairobi, Hong Kong, all with their own moments of great devastation, horror. Some days I am as tattered as this world. I don't think of raindrops, kittens, copper kettles. I think of you, reader, somewhere. May you be at ease. May mercy find us camped wherever we are in the firelight. This poem was really made possible by the numbers of prompts that I found in workshops. And it's give thanks and close your eyes. Repeat the name of one of your dead. Hear the light and taste it as if it were a slice of fruit. Let ideas fall to the ground like the seeds dribbled from the portholes of the feeder. Breathe in faith, breathe out fear, unless it's the right moment to hear what each has to say to the other. Do not envy the eyelashes of the llama or the winter coat of the Arctic fox. Open your eyes and count the shades of green and invite your voice to say nothing until you have a single word that you hold like a prism in your hand. Does it have what? Does it have? This poem is one that was reworked from before a year ago. And it can be read in 2 columns and also from left and right. It's called First Flowers in the Land of COVID-19. Interrupting my pain, the tiger lily's bloom sounds her trumpet mirrored in the curve the crescendo offers that only the bloom can hear in song for my dead. And the main theme, caught in the long leaf with the tempo of color and point of each petal toward the swallow-tailed butterfly flares this adagio for comfort now, for you living this moment. Interrupting my pain and the main theme, the tiger lily's bloom caught in the long leaf sounds her trumpet with the tempo of color mirrored in the curve and point of each petal. The crescendo offers toward the swallow-tailed butterfly that only the bloom can hear, flares this adagio for comfort in song for my dead, now for you, living this moment. And this last poem is the voice of the poet struggling with herself and poetry in the face of nature. The problem of describing rivers, after Robert Haas. The eddy swirls with surface spangles. It surprises. We smile. The water churns, turns back on itself, continues downstream. Warm and cold, horizontal and vertical, food swept up from bed and bottom in any river. Caddisflies pepper the silted cyclones and trout wait. No, eddies bankrupt gravity. No, sounds fall short. Phrase cannot equal what the river lives. There are times when poems cannot say or sing, and they teach us. Foothills and valley, tall sky, the river does something around the rock. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. That was great. Really appreciate it. Thanks for keeping it fresh. Now I'd like to introduce our second reader, Michelle Aucoin, recent grad of UNR's MFA program, now a professor in the Davidson Academy. She's had poems come out in Tea Pork Belly Press, The Hunger, and the Bitney Review. Let's give a warm welcome to Michelle.
Hi. Thank you, Sean and Emily and everyone else at Sundance, to everyone watching, and Kathryn and Melanie. I'm so pleased to be able to read with both of you. Before I begin, in light of the recent unspeakable acts of violence, I want to take a moment to recognize Asian American and Pacific Islander communities and highlight Asian American and Pacific Islander poets. If we have the means, we can support them by buying their books and teaching their work. Some of my favorites are Lee Herrick, Craig Santos Perez, Ocean Vuong, Chin Chin, Fatima Oscar, and Amy Nizuka Matatil. So with this first poem, I want to take you to my home in the South, and then we'll return to Nevada. This first one is titled Delta Rising, after Hieronymus Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights. In the beginning, we have not yet grown from our amoebic states, stood on 2 feet. The planet Earth is neatly encapsulated in a spherical body rendered in grisaille. In the left corner, a tiny god sits, hands too small to shake the globe of the world he has spoken into insignificant existence. Above it all, a portion of David's words. At first, he says, sing, make music, then fear, finally, hope. Here, he says, for he spake and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. On the first 6 days, I visited the Mississippi Delta, turned her soil, planted seeds in raised beds, held her children's hands, spun in circles till we all fell down. Listened to her blues in the church's rafters, at the crossroads, on the shores of the Tallahatchie, in the juke joints, and there was light, and stray dogs needing petted, and plates heaping with catfish, hush puppies, somebody's mama's coleslaw. We slapped mosquitoes and trapped lightning bugs in mason jars, held the firmament in our hands. On the 7th day, we sipped warm beer, drove down back roads, kicked up dust, anchored our poles in mud, stripped the heat off our backs, floated naked as the day we were brought into this world. In the end, those waters raised out the riverbanks. Humans, intelligent by design, old man said, just not smart enough to know you can't tame a goddamn river without consequence. Farmers keep singing them blues. It's in their bones. The next poem I'm going to read was first published in the Nevada Humanities Heart to Heart series. Quarantine has given me the unique space and time to discover my natural surroundings here in Nevada. I think the only thing you need to know about this poem is that stanza 6 includes an altered verse of the battle hymn of the Republic as written by poet, author, social activist, and abolitionist Julia Ward Howe. Oh, also, if you're out there, thanks Harrison for the pronunciation guide. I apparently didn't write this poem with reading it in mind, or I would have titled it The Muses. Calliope, Clio, Melpomene, Arania, Euterpe, Polymnia, Terpsichore, Arato, Thalia, in that order. It is summer here in northern Nevada. The black-billed magpie sits on my fence, mocking me with its freedom. Its high-pitched yak, yak, yak. I, from the south, still don't know how to write about dry heat. I understand humidity, can write verse after verse about all sorts of things clinging to wet bodies, dizzying in the dampness, flying cockroaches, singing locusts, and boiling crawfish. It is summer here in northern Nevada. I want to be free, but I don't want to catch or kill. I don't want to spread or meet a super spreader on the street, so I find sanctuary in the mountain woods. Last week, it was an abandoned cave. The week before, a fault line plagued with shiny black grasshoppers. This week, I sit quietly on the wooded shoreline of Lake Tahoe and allow her shallow wakes to soothe me. It is summer here in northern Nevada. The calliope hummingbirds streak emerald and ruby from one shockingly purple monkshood to the next. The petals vibrate with the tiny intensity of the calliope's thirst. Ovid, Wilde, and Joyce have written about the toxicity. Twin Peaks revived aconitine in season 3. I imagine each brilliant throat constricting, each little star falling mid-flutter. I don't want them to die, but death consumes me. It is summer here in northern Nevada. 3 fists below the Big Dipper and a little to the right, Neowise appears as a soft white blur. I can no longer see its brilliant tail. The mountain fire smoke has settled in on the horizon. The deep reds produced remind me there can be beauty after death. Across the sky, Jupiter stares back at me, winning. Who will blink first? I play this game until tears burn at the corners of my eyes. It is summer here in northern Nevada. People are in the streets chanting. Somewhere, Nina Simone amplified tells crowds of marching people everybody knows about Mississippi, goddamn. In my house, the bass from March March makes the Chicks record skip. I am here, safe, cursing these skips. Other mothers are outside getting gassed. Other mothers are afraid for their children. It is summer here in northern Nevada. My stargazer lilies blossomed. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. And he died to make women holy. Let us die to make women free while God is marching on. It is summer here in northern Nevada. When my husband comes home from work with the day's heat still clinging to his skin, I am sullen. This is how I deal with things. For weeks, I have been crying at the slightest provocation. He walks around saying, I'm sorry, but has absolutely no clue what he is apologizing for because none of this is his fault. This night, I press my head against his chest and we dance. It is summer here in northern Nevada. We have stopped sleeping upstairs in our bed because heat rises. Downstairs, I wear a sweater and thick socks as I work, but I never adjust the thermostat. I will not bathe until my next Zoom. My hair has become a purple tangle of knots, not unlike the puffy balls of hydrangea my grandmother used to coax to a deep bluish purple with buried Brillo pads. It is summer here in northern Nevada. Thalia, Your children dance with swords and shields. Set your smiling face down and let me mask this sadness. I sent all of my children a message that warned them not to open an email from me about canned meat because it was spam. They don't understand my love of puns, but for a brief moment, they laughed out loud. So these final two poems are part of a series of quarantine travel poems I'm working on. For the most part, places I've gone this past year are the impetus for the poems in this series. But this first one is not about a cave we actually went to, because that cave requires a tour guide, and that wasn't happening during quarantine. We did go to a cave, just not this one. I liked how this cave fit into the poem, so here it is. Terra Incognita, 26 April 2020. The epigraph reads, "And one does not get lost, but loses oneself, with the implication that it is a conscious choice, a chosen surrender, a psychic state achievable through geography." From Rebecca Solnit's Open Door. We play a game this summer. Flip a coin, I say. Heads we go north, tails we go south. Tails, he says. Flip it again, I say. This time, heads we go east, tails we go west. Heads, he says. Flip it again, I say. Now, heads we go east, tails we go south. Heads, he says. The only rule we make this time is that we must take the loneliest road. To the right of the trail to Hidden Cave at Grimes Point, boulders scrawled with petroglyphs stand in stark contrast to the picnic areas, restrooms, and info kiosks the Travel Nevada website promises weary wanderers seeking respite along the loneliest road. We stand staring at the scrawling and play the cloud game. It looks like a path, he says. Maybe it is a map. I say, you are always so practical. Maybe it is a snake or a river. Maybe they had real rivers 8,000 years ago. Maybe, he says, acknowledging our inside joke. The Mississippi may be mightier, but her warm, muddy waters don't quite baptize you like the cold, clear waters of the Truckee. All these words feel like they belong to me, but they don't. The M-I, crooked letter I, crooked letter I, humpback I, we know, comes from the Anishinaabe people. It means father of waters. But when we colonize land and people, we tend to feminize the land, make her something our men can protect. The story goes that the Truckee is named after a Paiute chief. Either his name was Trequizo and the travel party Americanized his name, or when he said troquet, meaning everything is all right, they thought he was giving them his name. We make our way to the caves. He crouches to enter. I barely bend. In the damp darkness, we catch our breath as our pupils dilate in the new night created by the cave walls. The wooden plank path swallows our footsteps. Even though it feels reverent to whisper, I can't help but want to shout. Hear my voice echo, echo, echo. But I keep silent, mouth agape, mimicking the noise I want to make as my entire body takes in the once secreted expanse. Perhaps all the previous digging has disturbed enough. Perhaps we could get lost here, waiting for bats to swim out into the pierced sky. Perhaps we have finally run far enough away from home. So I think all you need to know about this last poem is that the penultimate line references frost stopping by woods on a snowy evening. And also we did actually go to the site of this bridge. So Terra Incognita, 11 October 2020. The epigraph reads, "You never know ahead of time what something's really going to be like." Catherine Patterson, Bridge to Terabithia. This time, the death toll had surpassed 200,000. We were soda bottles waiting for someone to drop Mentos in. Flipping a coin and following the direction of chance had not lost its novelty, so we taught our game to a friend. Tails, he said, as he uncovered the land of 10,000 lakes side of a Minnesota quarter. Now heads we go north, tails we go south. Okay, I see, he said, and sent the quarter sailing, dead president over lakes into the roof of the car. It rebounded onto the floorboard, Washington side up. One more time. The lakes didn't lie. West it was. We went off in search of the Honey Run covered bridge, which lies almost due west of the biggest little city in between Chico and Paradise, California. I brought baby pumpkins because fall. If you go the right way, the climate can change 3 times before you ever get to your destination. If you go the wrong way, you can pop a tire on a gravel road where calling someone is out of the question, but games can be made out of timing the driver like he is the lone member of a pit crew you found wandering out in the desert looking for tires to change in under 5 minutes. These are the games we promise to play. We set barroom rules. Don't talk politics or about anyone dying. We broke them. We got quiet. We turned the music up loud. We put our hands and then whole heads out the windows. We howled. As we got closer, we saw the charred scars of former fires. We talked about how fires scared us, how we weren't prepared for how petrifying they were when we moved here. Sure, we'd heard about the death and destruction on the news, but that was so far away from the other side of the Mississippi. We drove all that way, but the bridge wasn't there anymore. A fire consumed it in 2018. We took pictures with pumpkins beside the restoration. New life was already turning the deep reds and golds of autumn. We invented folks dressed up like fairy tales, speaking solemn vows on the bridge that was no more. The memories made turned to embers. We dipped our hands in the water rushing underneath the naked trusses. With games left to play and promises left to keep, we kept driving. They say we haven't seen the worst yet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Wow. Love the first poem. Wow, what an indictment that is. Just a beautiful, long, it kept growing. The momentum just kept getting stronger and stronger. Thank you so much. I said your name wrong, Michelle. Our next reader is Kathryn de Lancellotti, whose chapbook Impossible Thirst was just published by Moontide Press in 2020. She's a pushcart nominee, former recipient of the Cal Press Poetry Prize. Her work's been published in the American Journal of Poetry, Quarterly West, Cultural Weekly, and others. She's a recent grad of SNC's MFA program. I'd like to give her a warm welcome back to Sundance. Kathryn.
Unmute myself there. Thank you so much, Sean, for that introduction. And thank you, Emily, and Sundance Books and Music. I am so happy to be back. I read 3 years ago in person and it was beautiful. So I'm just really grateful to be here. And thank you to Michelle and Melanie. Your readings are absolutely stunning and I'm so inspired and grateful to be reading with such incredible women. And thank you so much for your homage to the Asian American poets. Lee Herrick is a dear friend of mine, and I'm actually going to be reading an epigraph from one of his poems for one of my poems. And also Laura Wetherington, who Sean first read, is a dear friend of mine who I absolutely love, and she's been pivotal in my poetry walk. So really excited to hear those 2 names tonight. I'm going to be reading from my chapbook Impossible Thirst with Moontide Press, and I'll add the link to the book on the YouTube page if anyone's interested in purchasing it. Sylvia, Aren't we all looking for a way out of the owl's talons? A way not to remember the honeybee's sting, the shape of a boot on your back, all the nights your breast would leak, a child, the sucking, the screaming. Aren't we all looking for a way not to remember the poems that cry us to sleep, the little ghosts we carry in our hands? Dare we tell? Forget the Ativan, the razor, your car in Little River. You wrote in blood, and for your sacrifice, I thank you, dear poet, dear mother. You took care of your children the best you could. I've heard the stories. You'd swear no gas seeped through the door. You'd swear you sealed worlds between us. This next poem is written after Sharon Olds' poem, Sex Without Love, and it begins with an epigraph by Sylvia Plath. Every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you, the boot. I fucked Professor on my period, pulled his ears while he plucked the string out with his teeth, told me he wasn't afraid to taste a little blood. I fucked Father on the church pew, hymns torn almost to nothing. How sweet the sound, how sweet the blood of the lamb. How do they do it, Sharon asks, the ones who make love without love? I tell her I've done it on dorm room carpet, done daddy next to Jesus, so many daddies and false messiahs. I'm not saying it was beautiful as ice skaters whirling ice or bones bowed inside each other. Think crown of thorns, think rust and screw, think I'm ugly for punishment, that sometimes a daughter sticks her head in the oven. Sometimes she comes to the rock for the slaughter, comes face red as wine, red as meat, red as a child begging, Daddy, Daddy, don't leave. And I wasn't gonna read this poem tonight, but I decided to because Melanie read a poem about Mary Magdalene, and she's also a muse of mine. And I figured that I would just stick with that theme and read it. So thank you for inspiring that. Not to the Father will I give myself, not to confessionals, nor bank, nor country. I will not drop bombs, sir, will not build walls. No longer will I give myself to bearded musicians nor salty surfers. Touch myself instead. I will not treat the earth the way you treat the feminine, will not pour oil into oceans, starve the sacred polar bear, nor steal ivory from an elephant's face. It's true, officer. I told my toddler not to trust you, that you're a dog off leash, leaders of war, of money, of pussy grabbing. You may not kiss me nor choose for me. I don't pray to Archangel Michael anymore. I pray to the mother, to Mary, and to the other Mary. Dare I say her name? Washed his feet with her hair. Saint Magdalene, teach us to love our clitorises. Teach us multiple orgasms. Teach us to say no. I don't want to have sex with you. Don't want to make your bed. Go ahead, call me a whore. You've been hurt too, little brother. Told to take off your sunflower dress. All right, thank you. Super fun. What God is. And I'm sorry I'm gonna be moving a lot because I have a pretty severe back injury right now. So I'm very like ADD looking, kind of moving a lot, and I hope it's not distracting, but I'm trying to, it's hard to sit right now. Anyways, what God is. I don't wanna hear what God is from a book or a capitalist, a bearded man on a spiritual quest, or from a pulpit. I don't want to hear about sin or that desire leads to suffering. I want a God who's tantric, moves slow from toe to crown, one who appears in fire, in lotus, and between breath. I want a God who watches from as far as Sirius, close as skin, bright star, obsidian. I want a God who's an artist, a woman, a man, one who labors and bleeds, suckles on the afterbirth. I want a God small enough to watch the sun fall into the Pacific, to climb a eucalyptus, to ravage a wild blackberry. A God who takes pride in skinning the mule deer, finds pleasure in its helpless sway. I want God to walk down that golden staircase for a taste of this delicious hell. Thank you. All right, I'm going to read a couple more short poems. Thanks so much for everyone for being here and tuning in. Figure study, 1. I was so used to men staring, I thought it was the price I paid. 2. I used to wear fear like a robe I couldn't drop before walking on stage, afraid the artist might capture something I can't see in my own body or face. I once stood naked in the middle of the classroom, blood dripping between my legs. I did not move, did not wipe it away. I let it fall to my feet until the timer rang. 3. I learned to stand naked for hours in stillness, to be the canvas, blank, to give to the artist what's needed, mostly shadows and shapes. A man once told me I was too beautiful to paint, that there was something about me he couldn't capture. I learned at a young age not to give it all away, that it's better to be a muse than a mate. I told him I felt the same. I can't grasp myself either, too good at silence, at restraint. I'm an artist, I say. The world's too loud, the body never still, always churning, bleeding to create. I want to tell you what it's like to be cut into marble, hung in a gallery, frozen in a frame. I want to tell you what it's like to watch a man mold you in still life, to let him believe he's your maker as he carves your ivory waist. Such desire for the body he has formed, such art his hands crave. I want to tell you what it's like to hold a man in stillness for hours, then walk out unscathed. Thank you. The astronaut in the suit. My body, you are an animal, a bloody animal. Before I left my mother, we made an agreement. You promised to hold me. I promised to feed you. My body, you are the door my son entered and left. You grew him with the discipline of a rishi and the efficiency of a watch. I'm starving, but I can't eat my body. I burn toast to swallow black, chew and chew and chew. And this poem begins with an epigraph by Lee Herrick. My earthly inheritance, your arms, your sigh, your heavy song. The rain fell, the floods came. I lost the lyric when I left my mother, entered the fluorescent room. I lost it with the first prick of the needle, when the sun imploded and became a hole I was pulled from. I lost it in church when I sang to a room full of strangers, heads submerged in communal waters. I lost the lyric when I opened my legs for a man I will not name, For the earth we ravage, my God, his holy thumb pressing us into the dirt. I lost it for a child yanked from in between, a boy who calls me mother, asks I turn the world red as the uterus, as the sky we come from, as the rock I was told to stand on. But I built my house on the sand, never listened when they said the floods would come. And he came and he came and he came, and a belly became a home, became heavy with song. Thank you so much. I'm going to read one more poem to finish it off, and that should be it. I'm very excited. Thank you. This is a lot of fun. I haven't read in a while. Remember me, the blue baby on the sands of Italy, the mother on the floor who weeps. I'm the one who's changed, plucked the fruit, made love to a snake, sold my body, absorbed poison in the factory, hid in the desert for days. I look in the mirror, see nothing, can't make a living or leave. I'm Sarah laughing at God, the virgin who birthed kings. I hold a small hand, spread the butter and jam, stuff the freezer full of meat. I've seen ovaries eaten, breast sliced open. I'm the one who bleeds. There are mornings I cry, others I sing. I'm the rye rising in the kitchen, drinking the sunlight and the yeast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathryn. I remember reading those poems when that book came out. Lovely to hear them again. Thank you so much. What I love most about this afternoon is just putting together such strong voices from women. It's just a different reading when the feminine persona rises. And I thank you all for coming to the party. So next week, Jesse DeLong will be reading from his new book out from Baobab Press. Jason McCall and Peter Streckfus will join him. I will be sending out notices to all. I want to thank everybody, particularly Sundance, all of our friends there who've made this possible, especially Emily, Heather, and Christine, and especially to our readers tonight. You were wonderful. Thank you to everyone who's listening, and I hope you share this widely. There's some really wonderful poets here tonight, so thanks for joining us. That's all.
Great. Thank you, everyone. See you next week. Same bat time, same